Coming up on this episode, Herman said something a bit telling when he met Johann. Herman rolled up his sleeves and said,
"Oh, I get it. You want me to go in the closet and work them over?"
Thanks for stopping by. I did not know that. Classic TV edition. Please like and subscribe.
Please stop saying don't forget to like and subscribe.
Sure, but how are we going to get followers on this thing then?
Throughout history, there have been some legendary matchups and rivalries. Ali versus Frazier, Godzilla versus King Kong, Ginger versus Mary Ann. But one that needs to finally be looked at and analyzed is Lurch versus Herman Munster.
Lurch.
Herman Munster.
Because of reruns, I think most people immediately recognize the two. But just in case you somehow don't know or only have a vague memory of the two, let's go over a bit of their history. There were two monster-type comedy shows that showed up in September of 1964 and then disappeared in the spring of 1966. Herman Munster was the father of the Munster family, and the program was called The Munsters. Lurch appeared in the Addams Family and was the family's butler. One might assume by their looks that both characters are related in some way to the original Frankenstein monster. We do know that is a fact as far as Herman is concerned. In one episode, the great-grandson of the creator of the Frankenstein monster, Victor Frankenstein, contacts Herman.
Oh, Dr. Frankenstein.
Acquainted. He made me what I am today.
He later introduces a creature to him named Johann, who looks exactly like Herman but is much more primitive. He's much more like the Frankenstein monster in the old horror films. Dr. Frankenstein explains that his grandfather had created failed prototypes until he perfected Herman. So what about Lurch? His background is much more sketchy. In the original series, his mother appears in one episode. In the movie Addams Family Reunion, it said he has the heart of an Addams. And in a cartoon version, Lurch claimed his father had put him together, which seems to be a Frankenstein-type reference. So we can only guess. Maybe he was one of Dr. Frankenstein's earlier prototypes, which in a way would make him Herman's cousin or brother, although we do know Herman already has a twin brother named Charlie. Okay, now that we've kind of established who they are, let's start comparing and contrasting them. Who will come out on top? As far as the actors were concerned, that's easy. In real life, actor Ted Cassidy was 6'9", while Fred Gwynne was 6'5". But which monster was taller? Herman's driver's license listed his height as either 7'3" or 7'6". No way was he really that tall. The actor wore boots that were built up to add another 4 inches to Gwynne's height, as you can see here. That would have boosted Gwynne's 6'5" height to 6'9". It doesn't appear that Ted Cassidy wore any height boosters. His shoes look pretty normal here. I found two actors that appeared as guest stars on the show, Richard Deacon from The Dick Van Dyke Show, and comedian Don Rickles. Herman appears like he may be a bit taller when standing next to these two guests, but it could be the angle of the photos. Verdict: the 4-inch footwear on Herman make them both 6'9", so we'll have to call this one a tie between the two monsters. Both clearly have superhuman strength. One problem with comparing the two is Herman is the lead character in his series, while Lurch is just a supporting character, so we see a whole lot more of Herman's strength and what he's capable of in various situations. We know that arrows bend when they are shot into his head.
These poor steel-tip arrows haven't a chance against Lurch's head.
Lurch can easily pick people up, and be careful shaking his hand because he might break it. In one example of how powerful he is, when he pulls the summoning cord, he pulls it right out of the ceiling. But it was difficult to find clips that really showed larger examples of Lurch's strength, like lifting a car or something like that. Maybe they're out there, but I couldn't find them. It was pretty easy to find examples of Herman and his strength. It was a running gag in almost every show. Like I mentioned, he was the main character, so it often showed him in various situations where we could see what he could do. Lurch may have been as powerful as Herman, but we just don't have enough examples to know that. So Herman wins this one. Surprisingly, both are seen playing instruments and singing. That's one aspect of being a monster I was unaware of. Lurch loves to play the harpsichord. He's shown doing that fairly often on the show. He also had a hit song in one Addams Family episode. Lurch even ended up singing and dancing to a song called Do the Lurch in 1965 on a real TV show called Shindig. Unfortunately, in real life, that song never made the charts. Herman has been shown playing the guitar at times. He even played the electric guitar once, but that was from a dream sequence that Lily had about him. He recorded a song once in his basement, and we'll talk about that later. This was a close one, but we have to give it to Lurch. Music is such a big part of his life, and he actually cried when he learned that his beloved harpsichord was being sent to a museum. I have to admit that for such big men, both of them could cut a rug. Herman was a bit of a clod when it came to dancing hand in hand with a partner. He even took dance lessons to overcome his problem. But in this 1965 commercial, he showed he was better suited for dancing to the hit music of that era. But Lurch's dance with Wednesday went viral when the internet came along, and who can forget the time he danced so hard he couldn't stop? I think Lurch wins this one, hands down. Incredibly, both monsters had their moment in the sun as music idols. Herman recorded a version of the song Dem Bones at home that ended up on radio stations and became a hit. Unfortunately, it went straight to his head.
Go, baby. Go.
As you can see, he's signing many photos from his fans. As I mentioned, Lily had a dream that he had become a rock star, but it never actually happened. The family was so worried about Herman's big ego that Grandpa created something that made his voice sound like a chipmunk, and that ended his career. Lurch also had a hit record, and fans couldn't seem to get enough of him. He has teen fans surrounding the Addams house as they desperately try to get just a glimpse of him. His song is ridiculously wonderful. His career ends when he is scheduled to go on a world tour, which terrifies him, and he loses his voice. He gets it back, but when his clothes are ripped up by his crazy fans, he's had enough, and he ends his career. Gomez tapes his mouth shut, so he can't sing to assure none of his fans can be attracted to his beautiful voice anymore. I think Lurch wins another one. He appeared to have a huge fanatical fan base, and his song was clearly original. For some reason, both shows love dressing up Herman and Lurch in ridiculous outfits. I don't know why, but for some reason, there's something funny dressing an unusually large man in silly clothes. They also like placing them in awkward situations. While Lurch occasionally wore silly outfits, Herman has the advantage because, again, he was the main character and had more opportunities to dress him up in funny clothes. Like the running gag of Herman's strength, putting him in crazy outfits was kind of a staple of the series. Winner, Herman. It looks like Lurch ended up with a 1-point victory in these categories, but who would win if they ended up squaring off? Since both are gentle giants, it would likely never happen. But with the limited info on Lurch's strength, I'd have to go with Herman. Plus, Herman said something a bit telling when he met Johann, his wild and primitive prototype. When Dr. Frankenstein said that Johann needed some of the rough edges knocked off him to learn how to be civilized, Herman rolled up his sleeves and said,
Oh, I get it. You want me to go in the closet and work them over?
as if he'd done that kind of thing before, which was a bit surprising coming from him. He also remarked that he had been a bit uncivilized like Johann in his younger days. Both actors struggled with mixed feelings toward these monster characters they played. They both became so identified as them that they felt it made it difficult getting roles when the series ended. But Cassidy did return as Lurch in 1977 in a TV reunion movie, and Wynn did the same in 1981. Sadly, Cassidy passed away not long after that when he had complications after a benign tumor was removed from his heart in 1979. He was only 46 years old. Wynn went on to finally break away from his Herman character in the 80s and 90s and was given great reviews and hit films. He passed away in 1993 at the age of 66. So, who is your favorite monster? Do you agree or disagree with who was the best in these categories? Which series was or is your favorite? This was a silly episode, but I hope a fun one, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.
Brother,